Shiki might seem like an average, lifeless high schooler, but on a fateful day when his only family is unplugged, right before his eyes, a mysterious power awakens within him, transforming him into an uncontrollable demon. Turns out he's not alone, and many others possess this very power. With their help, he joins a school for demons, desperate to learn how to control his power so that he can take revenge on his enemies. The story begins with a desperate man named Samidar standing under rain that looks like blood. He begs his senpai to kill the child as well, warning that he'll regret it later if he doesn't. But his senpai doesn't believe he made any mistake by sparing the innocent child, so he walks away from the scene. The child belongs to a tribe of demons that existed long ago. These demons once terrorized mankind, making millions feel powerless. But one strong-willed man dared to fight back. He was Momotaro, a legendary swordsman who single-handedly slaughtered hundreds of Onis, igniting an endless war between him and the entire Oni tribe. The same war that caused this incident. 15 years pass after this event. The scene shifts to the second floor of a liquor store owned by the Ichino's family. That floor serves as the bedroom of a high schooler named Shiki Ichinos, who also happens to own a suspiciously large collection of guns. He's on a call with a friend, proudly telling him he just got expelled for getting into a fight. His friend, feeling guilty, blames himself since the fight happened because Shiki stepped in to save him. But Shiki tells him not to worry, saying it's nobody's fault, then hangs up. Shiki's father, Choshi, storms in, furious after hearing the news, and smacks his useless son hard on the head. Shiki doesn't care in the slightest and tells his dad not to break a sweat over something so trivial. But to Choshi, it's far from trivial. He tries to teach Shiki a lesson, but how can he when the kid has the reflexes of 1,000 monkeys? Choshi calms down and asks why Shiki has turned his bedroom into a GTA gun store. Shiki tells him to shut up and reply, and changes the topic, asking if it's true that the liquor store is going out of business, as he's heard Shoshi's customers are vanishing day by day. Shoshi's awkward silence confirms it, and trying to save his face, he mocks Shiki, calling him an expelled punk who's no better. Shiki is hurt this time, so he gets serious and tells his dad that no matter what happened, he'll become successful one day and never turn out to be a total loser like him. He doesn't stop there and twists the knife even deeper, saying the only thing that gives him peace is knowing they're not related by blood. That stings bad, so Shoshi leaves the room and heads back to the store downstairs. There, the telephone rings, and a customer wants some beer delivered to his house. So Shoshi heads out, but not before pausing for a moment to look at a childhood photo of Shiki, showing that he does love him. Meanwhile, Shiki is still pissed off and mutters that his life would have been way better if some rich guy had adopted him instead of this washed-up old man. To vent out his frustration, he grabs one of his guns and points it at the target on the wall, but just as he is about to pull the trigger, a loud explosion shakes the building. He looks out the window to see what happened, when out of nowhere, a shadowy force grabs his legs and drags him down to the street. The man behind this attack is revealed to be Samidari, the same man we saw at the beginning of the story, who has some kind of dark power at his disposal. He approaches Shiki, asking for his name to confirm his identity. But before Shiki can answer, Shoshi crashes into Samidari with his car and shouts for Shiki to get in. They speed away, and on the way, Shoshi says their only chance of survival is to leave the country immediately. Shiki has no idea what's going on. He asks if Samidari is a loan shark or something, and even if he is, crashing into him seems a bit excessive. He's worried his dad is going to get arrested for attempted murder, or worse, actual murder. Shoshi tells him to shut up for once, saying Samidari isn't dead, and Shiki asks how the hell he can be so sure. They have no time, but Shoshi knows that if he doesn't explain what's going on, his idiot son won't shut up, so he starts explaining, dropping a heavy bomb casually, that Shiki is a descendant of the demon Oni tribe, and Samidare is a descendant of Momotaro, which makes them born rivals. Shiki doesn't believe it, but there's no time for further explanation. Samidar catches up, pierces their car with his sword, and engulfs it with black mist. Losing vision, they have no other choice but to escape the vehicle, and just as they do so, the car explodes. At that moment, the black mist grabs Shiki and drags him to a nearby warehouse. There, Samidar reveals himself to Shiki and tells him not to take it, because it is just his job to exterminate only born pests like him. Choshi comes in, explaining to Shiki the current situation he's in. He reminds Shiki of the legend of the 1,000-year war between Momotaro and the Oni, a story Shiki had heard from his dad many times during his childhood. Tsuyoshi states that after Momotaro passed away, the war continued as his descendants joined together and formed an organization whose sole purpose was to slay all demons. That organization is now known as the Momotaro Agency, and Samidare, being a descendant, is a member of that agency. Tsuyoshi himself was once a member, drawing his own black mist sword to defend against Samidare. According to Tsuyoshi, all descendants of Momotaro are blessed by an unknown force that allows them to summon this black mist, which they use to slay Onis. Samidare mockingly refers to Tsuyoshi as his senpai, which hurts Choshi's feeling, as Samidare has betrayed him. But technically, it is Choshi who has betrayed his own family by adopting a freaking only child. In the meantime, Shiki is having a hard time believing what's unfolding right before his eyes. His loser father is a descendant of Momotaro, who, for some reason, thought it was a great idea to adopt his natural enemy. Samidare calls out Shoshi for that exact reason, telling him that he will be exterminated alongside Shiki for betraying his own kind. But Shoshi doesn't care and charges that Samidare, engaging in a battle whose outcome will decide who is right. Samidare, being much younger, gains the upper hand, dodging Shoshi's attack with swift speed before landing 2 direct strikes on him. As Shoshi falls to the ground, bleeding profusely, Shiki screams, begging Samidare to stop. Samidare looks at Shiki and tells him to stay quiet until it's his turn to die. Shoshi, with his last bit of strength, grabs Samidare's foot, which frustrates Samidare even more, as he's never understood why this man did so much to protect a freaking Oni. Shoshi, in reply, states that a father doesn't need any reason to protect his son. He begs Samidare to spare Shiki's life, promising that Shiki has never hurt anyone in his life and never will. As Shoshi's words begin to shake Samidare's resolve, he draws his sword with the intent to shut his senpai up permanently. Shiki's eyes split open. He wonders to himself why he is hung there helpless when his father is dying. He becomes angry. His anger gets uncontrollable, and his eyes start getting red and closing. He feels he must do something, and he must do it right now. He suddenly starts feeling his body change suspiciously. He gets uncontrollable, and his body drips blood. The entire black rope that is used to tie him gets bloody and breaks out. Samidare notices that something is moving behind him, and by the time he turns to the back to see, he sees that Shiki has broken free. He looks around for the boy and finds him on the roof, covered in blood. Shiki jumps to fight him, and he dodges. He is used to fighting Onis, so seeing Shiki isn't shocking to him. He sees that Shiki has finally awoken as an Oni, and Onis fight by manipulating blood. However, that isn't the most fearful thing about Onis, and that isn't the reason they kill Onis. The reason they kill Onis is because they have uncontrollable emotions, and they are a loss to humanity. He sets out to fight Shiki, who has lost control of himself. When he tries to make the first attempt at Shiki, Shiki dodges him. Shiki's body manipulates several weapons and shoots Samidare with them. Samidare dodges all of the bullets, but the missile that Shiki throws at him is so strong that he couldn't even find his way. I didn't expect that Shiki would be this strong. He continues fighting without even knowing what he is doing. He finally gets a hold of Samidare and hits him. He puts his hands on his head and attacks him. The entire building gets destroyed by the weight of his power. After an almost done fight, he takes a step back. Shockingly, Samidare doesn't die either. His head just has a black sign. He stands up with a renewed hope of killing Shiki and getting the world rid of Onis. As he walks toward Shiki, Shiki steps back and starts screaming. He gets a hold of his body again and is shocked that he is the one doing all of that. He screams and wonders in confusion. Shiki looks at his hand and wonders if he is the one. His hands are bigger, and there is blood all over him. There are several questions in his mind that beg for answers, but he doesn't even have answers to them. Samidare isn't shocked that he feels that way. The state of confusion and loss of memory is something that is very common with Onis when they change. he doesn't pity Shiki's condition. He just wants to eradicate him. When is the best time to attack Shiki if not now that he is in a state of confusion and disarray? So Samidari brings out his sword again and sets out to attack Shiki. He stabs someone, and at that moment, even Shiki assumes he is dead. Fortunately for Shiki, Tsuyoshi still has enough strength to defend him, so he had run there and taken the sword for his dear son. Samidare is angry. He asks Tsuyoshi if he still feels the need to defend the boy, after he saw how deadly the boy had become when he awoke. I guess a father's love can never be replaced. With his breath shaking, he remembers when Shiki was a child and how Shiki called him dad. He hears Shiki calling him dad again, and he smiles to himself. Samidare wonders how far he will go to protect the blood of an Oni and asks questions in his heart as to how important he is. Tsuyoshi smiles to himself as he concludes that it is at least nice for him to be happy for a while. The collapsed building calls for speculations and talks around the city. Everyone starts gathering around to know what is happening, and they wonder if it is either a gas eruption or otherwise. Samidare doesn't want to call attention to himself, so he disappears. This leaves Toyoshi and Shiki enough time to have their final reunion. Shiki holds his father, hoping that his father survives, while Toyoshi is just apologetic about the fact that he didn't tell Shiki about his birth. He admits that he should have told Shiki about his blood, but he didn't have a good way to tell his son that he will be chased by Momotaro all the days of his life, and he has to fight. However, he leaves Shiki with advice as to how he can survive. He reminds Shiki that he will be alone from that day and begs him to get stronger so he can escape from both the Momotaro and the Onus. With this, he gives up the ghost. Shiki cannot believe that his entire life had ended in front of him. Just a few minutes ago, he was still teasing his father, and everything suddenly changed. He screams that he still has a lot of things to do with Tsuyoshi. He wants to apologize to him for saying he isn't his blood, and he has a lot to say. When Tsuyoshi doesn't respond, he cries. Before he can grieve well, a man sneaks behind him and slaps his neck. He faints immediately as the man tells him that he is a fool for letting someone sneak in on him. Meanwhile, at Momotaro's headquarters, the elders talk about how Samidare had gone to fight without their consent or prior notice, and they wonder if the Momotaro has gotten weaker. They insist that they cannot let Honest remain in the midst of humans, and they have to ensure they eradicate them all without allowing humans to get suspicious of them. Wait, who are these ones that are tied up here? Well, watch out. The boy that had hit Shiki earlier, Naito, calls his principal. His principal congratulates him for getting one of them into the school, and you can see his principal is so excited about it. Even if he also claims not to be excited, it seems like he is. His principal asks about the others he has gotten, and he talks about Shiki, claiming that he doesn't know if Shiki will be worth it. Will Shiki be worth it eventually? Shiki remains unconscious and thinks about all the childhood memories he has with Tsuyoshi, how they would play around in the area, and how he would beg Tsuyoshi to carry him on their way home. He recalls that Tsuyoshi has been cut off and is probably dead too, and that realization jolts him back to the world. He is tied to a chair with his mouth bound as well. He looks around to evaluate the situation and see if there's a way he can escape. Beside him is the strange young man who had rescued him earlier, Naito, currently training and counting down. When Naito sees that he has woken up, he reveals that he didn't want to wake him up forcefully because he knows Shiki's brain wouldn't be able to process what is happening. Shiki just wants to be unbound, so he barely cares. Naito comes to his front and introduces himself. He tells him that he is also an Oni like him and unveils his horn to prove his identity. He tells Shiki that his father's body has been well preserved and he doesn't have to worry. However, the reason Shiki is there is for evaluation and retrieval. Naito slides over a board to explain the situation. There is the Momotaro Agency, an organization that traces its roots to Momotaro, and their major aim is to rid the world of every Oni. They emit black mist, and one of them is the man Shiki fought earlier. In order to fight against that agency and resist the extermination of Onis, the Onis created their own organization, the Oni Agency, which Naito is part of. His job is to find reawakened Oni and determine which of them is strong enough to join the agency. He tells Shiki that he will loosen his mouth so he can prove himself worthy of being retrieved into the group. Immediately after he removes the binds from Shiki's mouth, Shiki becomes irrational and angry. He asks Naito where his father is, and Naito, acting as an examiner, deducts 1 point from his score. Naito asks him if he's dumb and didn't remember that he had already said his father's body is safe. He reminds him that if his father were dead, he wouldn't have said he's safe. Shiki doesn't trust Naito. He insists that Naito should untie him if they're to have a rational conversation, but Naito deducts another point again. Shiki gets even more upset, insists that Naito isn't trustworthy, and says he doesn't want to join any association. Naito realizes that Shiki is the stubborn type and plans to deal with him as such, but Shiki takes a moment to pause. He is the one in a desperate situation. He is the one who needs to be calm. He calms himself down and speaks to Naito calmly, asking why he keeps grating him and begging to be untied. He insists that he has a purpose. He needs to get revenge against the man who attacked his father, and he doesn't have time to waste. So Naito should please let him go. Naito keeps trying to calm him down so he can understand what's happening, but Shiki doesn't want to waste time or overthink things. Since he isn't interested in being rational, Naito decides to assess his skills another way. Naito's main objective is to determine whether Shiki is skilled enough, and if he won't show it calmly, he'll provoke it. He brings out a red tie and comments that Shiki seems like someone who would be good with ties. Since Shiki doesn't want to talk, he decides to strangle him to the point of death, because when someone reaches that edge, even if they didn't want to act, they'll end up acting anyway. He goes behind Shiki and strangles him, saying that when he's about to die, he'll show his skills. As expected, Shiki begins to struggle, weighing the idea of death. Dying would mean only one thing: he'll lose the chance to avenge his father, and he refuses to let that happen. His passion, fear, and anxiety all converge into one thing: the need to survive. As his eyes turn red and blood begins to drip from his body, it's obvious that he's about to return to his Oni form. He suddenly stops struggling, and Naito assumes he's dead. However, the blood on the floor starts gathering together, and Shiki turns berserk. He leaps toward Naito to attack him. Naito knows Shiki can't control what he feels in this state, and that, no matter what he does, he won't even remember it. Naito pulls out his bloody umbrella and prepares for Shiki's attack. If that attack had been aimed at a normal person, it would have been brutal. But since it's against Naito, who can control his powers, Naito uses it as an opportunity to teach Shiki a life lesson instead. Shiki later wakes up and sees his hands covered in blood. He realizes that his hand is no longer in its normal form, and he can't remember what happened. Naito explains that when an Oni goes berserk, it strips him of his mind and body, leaving no memory behind. Shiki notices that Naito also has some bloody weapon and assumes Naito went berserk too, but Naito clarifies that he's merely controlling his blood. He insists that Shiki can't even control his mind and body and would be useless to the team even if they let him in. As a result, he has no interest in Shiki. Before he leaves, Shiki examines him. He knows Naito is strong, and being with him could give him a real chance at revenge. He swallows his pride and bows before Naito, asking him to take him along. However, Naito refuses, saying he won't take an Oni who would be a burden to the group. In fact, he doesn't want an Oni that can't control his powers roaming around and endangering others, so he'll kill Shiki. He stabs himself to bring out his blood to fight. Shiki doesn't want to die, so his only option is to fight back. He charges at Naito, and Naito, curious to see what Shiki can do, prepares to defend himself. He expects Shiki to leap in for an attack, but what Shiki does next blows his mind. He assumed that Shiki would go berserk as usual, but when Shiki jumps on his umbrella shield and reaches him, he sees that Shiki has created a gun with his Oni and shoots it at Naito. Fortunately, Naito is strong enough to defend against the gunshot and pushes Shiki back. When Shiki falls, he tries to prove to Naito that he had successfully controlled his power, but Naito insists that it was just a fluke and can't be counted. Just as Naito predicted, Shiki is almost entering berserk mode, but he tries to fight it. As the blood keeps trying to rush to his head, he holds his hands and fights back. Eventually, he successfully stops himself from going into berserk mode. Naito is shocked. He has never seen someone irrationally control the Oni blood. Shiki didn't only control his Oni blood, he also stopped himself from going berserk, and Naito wonders how that happened. When he asks Shiki insists he won't give him his star secret unless Naito makes him his underling. When he sees that he needs to impress Naito, he tells Naito that he saw the way Naito had pinched his finger to bring out the bloody umbrella. All he did was believe that since they were both Onus, he could do the same. As a result, he summoned his brain to make a gun for him, and his brain successfully made a gun. Naito doesn't believe him. Only blood doesn't work like that. To Naito, only blood and rationality always conflict, which is why Onis who are irrational prove useless in the end. In Naito's head, there is a police officer between rationality and going berserk. To ensure you don't go berserk, you have to ask the officer to lock the berserk mode away and borrow about 30% of its power. However, that isn't the same thing going on in Shiki's head. His own is more violent. He is fighting the officer, and after defeating the officer, he fights the berserk mode to lend him power and ensure that he doesn't go berserk. He may be irrational, but there is something different about him, which makes him the best fit for this crazy power. While Naito considers all this, Shiki keeps begging him. He pleads, saying he knows he isn't useful, but if Naito takes him in and he becomes strong enough to avenge his father, he may eventually become useful to Naito after his revenge. Again, Naito refuses to take him in. He walks toward him with a bloody spear and tells him he has to kill him. He takes the spear and stabs Shiki. Well, not Shiki. He only stabs his side. He reveals that he won't take Shiki as his underling. Instead, he will take Shiki as his student. He confesses that right from the beginning, he already knew Shiki passed the test. But he won't reveal to Shiki what the question was. Trying to understand what the entire Oni is about, he reveals that Shiki is presently on the mountain and river that his principal was. That place is called the Hell Doorstep, known as Onigashima. Inside that place is a school called the Rasetsu Academy. It isn't a normal school. It is a place where young and awakened Onis are trained on how to fight, how to control their blood, and ensure they don't go berserk. They also learn about the history between Onus and Momotaro and how to deal with the entire situation. It is a school for Onus, and that is where Shiki will be attending to. Shiki is angry that he has to return to school, but if that means he will be able to have his perfect revenge, then he will go. He confirms with Naito that he can really get stronger, and when Naito affirms to him that getting stronger is the least of the things he will get there, he decides to join. To make it worse, Naito informs him that he will be his homeroom teacher. The students in the class are all young, but some of them have learned to control their powers more easily. He takes Shiki to get cleaned up, and before Shiki comes back outside, he notices that the horns on his head remain. He complains to Naito, who is exercising, and Naito reveals that it is the sign of awakening. But when he gets stronger, he will gain the ability to control the visibility of the horn too. Shiki comes out with his uniform. He is excited about this new journey, but before he starts, he needs to know what ended his father's life. He asks Naito, who informs him that he had kept his father's body in the morgue because he doesn't know Shiki's burial plans. He advises Shiki that he doesn't have the time or opportunity to mourn, and instead of mourning, he should ensure that he gets stronger and has a perfect revenge. Naito starts racing to the classrooms and instructs Shiki to catch up and get to the class before him if he doesn't want to be expelled. Shiki runs and catches up. In front of the class, Shiki tries to catch his breath so he can enter with his pride, but Naito doesn't have time for that kind of packaging, so he kicks Shiki into the classroom. Shiki falls down and gets a nosebleed. He is worried that his classmates may see him as a coward, so he walks to one of the students, Jin Kugasaki, mocking Jin for not having his horns and asking for tissue. Jin reminds him that it's the Onus who can't control their powers that have horns showing. He brings out his horns. The other students, Ikari, Kuina, Juji, and Homari, who all have their horns showing and are also still weak, protest that Jin can't talk to them like that. On the first day of class, a fight almost starts. Naito pushes Shiki into a seat and instructs them all to settle down. Shiki is shocked at how he got pushed down, and Jin can't also imagine how Naito has gotten behind them. It's their introductory class, and Naito tells them they will play a game, a tag game. He takes them to a forest that he calls the Shinra Forest. He commands them all to run their way back to the academy, and anyone he catches loses the game, gets expelled, and the game ends. To make it easier for them, He tells them he won't be using his blood, but they are all allowed to use their blood. However, if they go berserk, he will use his blood. When Shiki is shocked about the game, Naito reminds him that it isn't a normal school. It is a school where those who will fight against the Momotaro agency are trained, so they have to be on their A game. Jin asks what happens if they kill Naito, since Naito isn't using his blood, and Naito tells him that if he is killed, then the person that killed him will graduate immediately and be given any position he wants. Shiki thinks about graduating. It means he is strong enough to fight his father's killers. But can he kill his teacher yet? The answer is no. Naito sees that the others are ready for the game except for Shiki, who is lost in thought. He summons Shiki, who smiles in anticipation of what his journey will be. This is the first test for Shiki, and the other students admitted to Rosetsu Academy, and the official name of the test is Oni Tag. To explain the rules of Oni Tag once again, the participants must return to the academy within 1 hour without getting caught by the player who is acting as it. In this case, their homeroom teacher, Naito. Naito mentions one more rule to the students. They are required to have one of these 2 special orbs in order to reach the goal. Just after saying so, Naito proceeds to eat the 2 balls away, once again telling the students that even if they manage to return to the academy, it won't count unless they have one of the balls with them. Yuji asks Naito how they are all supposed to pass if only 2 balls are available per round, and before Naito can answer, Ikari realizes that the students are going to have to fight against each other to get the balls. Naito reveals that that is the case and explains to everyone that they will all be split into 3 groups. They will have to fight each other in their group to get the ball. He picks Homar, Shiki, and Jin to be in the first group, then places Ikari and Juji in the second group, and lastly, the remaining 2, Rokuru and Kuima, are in group 3. Because groups 2 and 3 only have 2 members each, they will only have access to 1 ball, meaning that while group 1 will fight for 2 balls and possibly have 2 people pass, group 2 will only have 1 winner, and the same goes for group 3 as well. So technically, at least 3 of the rookie students are going to be expelled from this academy. With nothing left to explain, Naito tells everyone to get ready when Shiki interrupts, shouting that he doesn't want to be in the same group as Jin, referring to Jin as a masked weirdo. Naito makes it clear that if any one of the students has any objections to the rules set by the teacher, then they are welcome to leave this academy. The same goes for Shiki, and since he doesn't want to get expelled, he doesn't have any other option but to comply with the rules. Omari, who's quite shy, reluctantly approaches Shiki and tells him that she isn't quite good at being an Oni, so she will do her best not to get in Shiki's way during the tag game. Shiki, meanwhile, can't believe that a real girl approached a loser like him. All his life, girls have stayed away from him because he's been a total delinquent. And as this is the first time in his life he's speaking to a real woman, he immediately falls in love, promising her that he will protect her no matter what. Omar reluctantly explains that this is not what she wants from him. She just wanted to get acquainted with him. She then goes to speak with the other teammate, Jin, but he completely ignores her existence, leaving her in tears. Shiki, as promised, comes to protect Yumar's pride and curses Jin for making her cry. He then tries to calm Yumar down, telling her that someone as cute as her shouldn't ruin her face by crying, then corrects himself, saying that crying does make her look cuter. He then corrects himself once again, telling her that she will look cuter if she smiles, and encourages her, whispering to her that only the 2 of them should work together and pass the test. Now that Homar has calmed down, Shiki once again turns to Jin, picking a fight, and Jin, who's totally unbothered, calls Shiki an attention seeker for trying to mess with him every 5 seconds. In any case, Jin tells Shiki to give up now, believing that Shiki's going to get expelled, but Shiki states that he has a goal and will graduate the academy to achieve it. Jin mockingly says that Shiki's goal must be as meaningless as his existence, and that sends Shiki boiling with rage. But before he can engage in any more meaningless fights and waste everyone's time, Naito stops him, telling him and the rest of Group 1 to enter the game area, explaining that once Group 1 finishes the game, then Group 2 and Group 3 will get to take the test sequentially. While both Shiki and Jin step inside quickly in order to find the orb, Amar is left behind as she's too hesitant to do anything. While dashing through the forest, Jin gives us a hint about his goal, which is to join a unit so that he can meet a certain someone, and to achieve that goal, he will do anything, even kill Naito, as that will immediately graduate him from the academy and allow him to choose an only agency unit of his choice. Shiki, meanwhile, pursues Jin, wanting to teach him a lesson for calling his goal meaningless, with a wooden stick in his hand as a weapon. Shiki threatens Jin, telling him to either take his words back or fight him. Jin has had enough of this loser, so he takes off his mask for a second, revealing his hideous scarred face, and gets ready to fight. Shiki doesn't get intimidated at all and tells Jin to bring it on, so Jin draws his Oni blood, turning it into several drills attached to his right arm with pure precision. Shiki, who on the other hand can barely control his Oni blood, starts to realize that he shouldn't have picked this fight. Shiki admits to Jin that he isn't good at being an Oni yet, but still makes it clear that he won't back down, telling him that he must defend his dad's death, which Jin called meaningless. Jin, of course, didn't know that, and now that he's learned that Shiki's goal is to avenge his dad, he, for some reason, gets more pumped to beat the shit out of him. Shiki bites his fingers, but unlike the time he fought Naito, he isn't able to transform his blood into a weapon. So, he's got no option but to fight with the wooden stick, and, as expected, Jin overpowers him, barely missing him and cutting down an entire tree. On the other side, Amar trips and falls to the ground and falls into despair, accepting the fact that a confidence-less weakling like her doesn't belong here. She remembers that Shiki told her that he wants to work with her, but she is self-aware enough to know that she mustn't rely on others all the time. In any case, she keeps heading toward the bang she heard coming from Shiki and Jin's fight, not noticing that one of the balls was right behind her. Going back to Shiki, while he's desperately trying to land a hit on Jin, Jin is tossing him around, not taking the fight seriously at all. Shiki loses focus, wondering how he's going to control his Oni blood, and gets punished for not paying attention to the fight, getting punched hard across the face. Just as he opens his eyes after Jin has finished with him, he realizes that he has never felt that weak before. As a young child, he had always been very stubborn and stronger than anyone who intended to fight against him. He assumes it will be the same in this place, but the people around him are quite stronger than he is. Jin doesn't even turn to look back at him lying on the floor. He mocks him, saying he didn't even need to use his blood before finishing the fight, so Shiki is very useless. As he walks away, Shiki speaks to him. Shiki is angry that he could just do that to him and leave. Shiki tells him that he will get revenge, but Jin has heard enough of Shiki's stupid attitude. He tells him that it's best he dies since he is weak. He sends a bloody attack at Shiki, and at about the same time, Omar, who has been looking for them since she entered the forest, finds them. The young girl innocently runs to meet them, unaware that she's running straight into an ongoing attack. Before she reaches them, the weapon Jin sent has gotten closer, and her face lights up as she sees the attack. The scene gets toxic as there are fears that this attack may be the end of them, but since Shiki has promised her that he will protect her, he goes out of his way to ensure that she is fine. He holds her, and, after the entire attack runs by, he releases her, but he is injured and a part of his blood grips on her body. He goes to confront Jin, asking why Jin would do something like that and put them all in danger. Jin doesn't feel bad about what he has done. He insists that it isn't his fault, that they are weak, and since they are weak, they deserve to die. Homar sees the injury on Shiki's body and feels very bad. She bows her head and apologizes for getting him injured, but he insists that she isn't the one who got him injured. Instead, it is Jin. She keeps bowing and begging him, and her tears become bloody. From her bloody tears, a monster comes out, and it looks horrible. An Oni has a lot of blood, and their blood can generate several things. Homar knows how crazy that monster can be and knows she can't control it. She begs them to run because the monster will kill them. The monster attacks them, and it really looks like the end of them. Meanwhile, Naito looks at the scene, and the principal speaks to him. The principal reminds him that the day is meant to be an orientation day, but he is putting the kids in a war zone. He tells the principal that what he is teaching them is more than giving them orientation in class. It is more productive. The principal has always assumed that Naito isn't kind, but he knows that Naito has a part of him that is kind. He talks about how Onis die as children. Some kids even die just by being related to Onis. Some are taken to the laboratory for testing. At that point, when they are about to die, he wonders what they are thinking. That doesn't concern Naito. He believes that an Oni who is weak deserves to die. Meanwhile, Shiki survives the monster and wonders if Jin survived too. Jin jumps out of the grove and leaps in to keep fighting. Shiki goes to meet Homar and asks her if she could control that monster, but Mar can't. The monster uses her blood, and she is losing a lot of it, so he needs to take her away from under the monster. As he gets nearer to her, he sees that the monster tries to protect Homar. He wonders what could have caused that, but he doesn't stop. He tries getting to her, but the monster breathes blood and throws him off. He hears Homar call the monster sis, and he realizes it could be a trauma. Homar tells him that he should run away, but he can't do that. He reminds her that she is losing blood and may run out soon. She doesn't care about herself or her health, and she is fine with dying, but he is concerned. She has to face the fact that she's barely hanging in there, and he just wants to help. Knowing that he is that weak isn't even hard. It is quite pathetic. He recalls how he had watched his father die and he was too weak to do anything. And even now, is too weak. He starts crying because his blood can't release anything. Jin comes out and tells him to leave if he wants to cry. Jin rushes to fight and admits that the hit he got from that monster is still affecting him. But if he runs away at that point, he will die. So he can't. He injures himself to release his blood and calls the Eclipse blood release. Jin releases two different weapons, and this shocks Naito, who is watching them from afar. It takes a lot of blood control for an Oni, especially one as young as that, to successfully release two weapons. To release a weapon through blood for an Oni takes severe brain work. Your brain releases something through your blood, and it creates something you are familiar with. For some, it is a weapon that they love. For others, it is trauma they have kept all these years. Regardless, it takes intentionality. He knows that Shiki won't be able to release anything because what he had gotten when they fought earlier was just a flute. Jin jumps to fight the monster and attempts to cut off its head, but he is shocked when the monster protects itself. He jumps away and the monster tries to fight back. He keeps cutting through the blood with his sword, and Shiki takes his time to watch this fight while considering why he is too weak to even bring out a weapon. He suddenly realizes that everything Jin is using is to cut, meaning he can only create weapons that cut. He recalls that he had created a gun earlier and remembers that as a young child, he loved guns. So, he tries to navigate what weapon he can get. On the other hand, the fight between the monster and Jin gets severe, and Naito knows he can't keep watching, so he gets set to help them. Before he does that, the monster screams and Shiki tells him to keep quiet. Their attention is directed to Shiki, who has successfully directed his blood to create a gun. Naito is relieved that Shiki has gotten a hang of his blood. Shiki shoots the gun at the monster and blows off its head, while Jin looks at him in shock. And Shiki himself is proud. He has successfully gotten a hang of his weapon. What does this mean? Shiki sets out to fight with his weapon while Jin watches to know how he will use that weapon. The monster in front of him also doesn't expect what would land on him in a few minutes. Shiki activates his gun with pride and shoots at the monster 3 times. The kind of energy that flies from that gun isn't a natural one. Even for an Oni, it is so strong that it could successfully defeat the monster. The monster scatters around and the head flies. Naito wonders what kind of energy that is. It is one that even he didn't expect. To make it worse, he feels blood falling from the sky and then rain. This just means Shiki's bullet didn't just destroy the monster, it also changed the weather. What a power. Hamar is tired. She has lost a lot of blood, so she feels dizzy and falls. Shiki feels so much pity for her that he struggles to go to her rescue. However, he isn't that strong himself. He falls down but still tries to drag, but it is impossible. Naito comes to meet him and tells him that he has used a lot of blood. As a result, he feels dizzy and his memory is foggy. Shiki knows Naito is right, but he doesn't want to accept defeat. Instead, he struggles to stand up and brags to Naito that he could stand up despite all. However, he falls down immediately, this time harder. Naito doesn't feel pity for him. Instead, he tells him that he lacks control of his power, and if he continues like that, he will lose all his blood and die. Well, his death wouldn't be a pain because he is useless himself. Although Naito can't also shake the fact that Shiki is strong out of his mind. Shiki tells Naito to help Homar because she needs help more. Naito looks at him, wondering how he could still care for others even when he is in that condition. Before he could go to Homar's rescue, Jin comes there and attacks him from behind. He defends himself and Jin asks to fight. He reminds Jin that two of his colleagues are lying there helplessly, but Jin doesn't care. He says they don't matter after all and it isn't his business. He reminds Naito that if he kills Naito, he graduates immediately, so Naito is his target. Seeing how selfish he is, Naito activates his umbrella and gets set to fight. He comments that he treats his students equally, no matter how weak or strong they are, and he also hates people who discriminate. Jin isn't trying to be like, he just wants to kill Naito, graduate from the school, and get posted to a post he wants. Naito knows his driving force but insists that he wouldn't use his blood, just as he had promised, but he won't be calm with Jin either. Jin gets pissed that Naito doesn't see him as a great opponent, which is why Naito isn't bothered. He sets out to fight by releasing his blood in a blade, but what he doesn't know is that Naito's umbrella isn't a natural one. Before Jin could get closer to Naito, Naito releases gas from his umbrella. The snow blurs Jin's face. He assumes that Naito intends to attack him at close range, and that if he gets his sight back, he could defend himself. What he doesn't know is that Naito has figured him out. Naito attacks by shooting rubber bullets at him. He tries to hide and successfully hides behind a tree. Naito reveals that he knows Jin is injured because of the Titan he has fought, so he is going for his injured hands. But Jin doesn't have to worry. Those bullets won't kill him. Jin also has something for people who know about his low-range attacks. He releases another weapon, the Blood Splitters, which can fight someone from afar. He sends the splitters at Naito, who didn't fathom that Jin could fight long range too, since he is skilled. Naito dodges the attack before releasing a grenade to weaken Jin. Then he jumps at Jin and gives him a punch that throws him off balance. He mocks Jin that if Jin was fighting a real fight, he would be dead already. He knows that Jin is too weak to stand again, but to confirm it, he uses his umbrella to get him more stuck, asking him to break out. He says he knows Jin wants to be posted as fast as possible, so he can meet his dad. Jin is shocked that Naito knows his history, but isn't it just fair that a teacher knows his students? Naito reveals that he knows Jin's father is a Momotaro, which is a shock to Shiki. The difference between Shiki and Jin's fathers, despite being Momotaros, is that Shiki's father loved him as a child and took care of him. However, Jin's father was the direct opposite. He didn't treat him well, killed his entire family, and destroyed him. Jin survived barely, eating garbage around. His body is filled with scars that were caused by his own father. These scars are a testament to his dedication to just one thing in life, which is to kill his father. Because of this dedication, nothing else can kill him. In fact, he won't accept dying by anything else. He struggles to break out of the umbrella that Naito has kept him in, and he breaks out. However, before he could attack Naito, Naito attacks him and brings him back down. Before leaving him, Naito tells him that dying to get your goal is worthless. If there is anything that can make it worth it, it is living for your goal. If Jin continues like that, with the intention of dying to reach his goal, he won't live until the next day. Naito doesn't pity Jin because of his sob stories. Instead, he ties Jin to a tree and calls the school's clinic. He tells them that Homar has fainted while he had tied Jin, so they should pick them up. The other students are outside the gate, trying to know how that day would end. Meanwhile, Naito looks at Shiki, and Shiki struggles to stand up, claiming that he is still strong enough to continue and he can find the ball, which is their target. Naito reminds him that he has about 5 minutes to get the ball. To make matters worse, he reveals that he has one of the balls in his hand, as he found it on his way coming there. He gives Shiki 2 options: either fight him and get the ball from him, or check around for the last ball. No matter what he chooses, he has 5 minutes to determine his stay at the school. Shiki immediately starts running, and Naito assumes that Shiki wants to find the other ball. so he speeds off and follows him. After Naito leaves, Shiki jumps out of the forest and goes to meet Jin. He asks Jin to help him because he knows that no matter how he tries, he can't defeat Naito alone. In return, he will untie Jin, thereby helping him too. Jin would rather die than get help from someone like Shiki, so he refuses the offer. He claims he prefers remaining there than being indebted. However, Shiki tries to tell him he understands him. However, to him, teaming up with an enemy isn't that hard if it is what he needs to get his goals. He reveals that their goals are similar and tells Jin that his father is also a Momotaro. However, he is fine with Jin refusing to help him. Indeed, Jin says no. Naito rushes to the forest but can't find Shiki there. He assumes that Shiki has returned back. On the other hand, Shiki is running into the forest and cussing Jin out. He bumps into Naito in the forest, and before they could fight, Jin jumps from behind Naito and attacks him. Naito realizes that the boys have teamed up against him. Earlier, Jin had refused to be the disguise so that Shiki could attack Naito from behind. Rather, he accepts to be the attacking from behind, and Shiki reluctantly goes for what he wants. They both catch Naito unaware, and they use the rope that Naito had used to tie Jin to tie Naito. They start trying to drag Naito away, but Naito knows they are trying to play a game of endurance, and he is stronger than them, so they aren't a good fit. He doesn't know that they plan to ambush him. Jin throws his splatters of blood at Naito, and that catches him off guard. After he gets pulled off, Shiki rushes to him to get the ball. By the time Shiki hits him, the ball falls right to where Jin is. Naito wonders what they will both do. If any of them pick the ball, the other will struggle to get the ball away from him. They both have less than 3 minutes to rush to the end goal. Without thinking deeply, Shiki screams to Jin and tells Jin to go for the ball so they can win. Just as Jin picks the ball and starts running, Naito wonders if what he had just said was stupidity or being nice. He reminds Shiki that the person who takes the ball wins and the other person gets expelled. According to the rule of the game, it is at this moment that it clicks to Shiki that he had given Jin the opportunity to win, and he will be losing. He screams and rolls on the floor because he will lose. This gives Naito an opportunity to know him better. He isn't someone that is forward-thinking. He thinks for the moment and makes decisions for the moment. As Jin runs, he recalls the agreement he made with Shiki before they teamed up. He had told Shiki that he would help Shiki win, meaning if he takes that ball, he had stolen Shiki's win. As a result, he runs back to return the ball to Shiki. Just as Shiki laments, he sees Jin running back, and he wonders if Jin is also a fool. Jin screams that he doesn't want to owe someone a favor, so he is returning the ball, even if it means he will be expelled. Suddenly, a puppy gets nearer to them. Shiki goes closer to see what it is, and Naito tells him it is called a mukun. Mukuns are delivery birds that run emergency and secret deliveries for the onus, and for mukun to be there, it means something is happening. Naito goes to open the bag and sees a letter from the Kyoto agency, who announces that they have been attacked by Momotaro, and they need help. The practical officially ends, and they all make their way to the gate. Lucky for the two boys, though, the other students at the gate see them and assume that Homar was the one who lost the game. However, Naito informs them that Homar couldn't control her blood, and she has been taken to the clinic. He announces to them that the practical has ended, and they are all going to Kyoto to aid. Shiki trains on how he would stop his horns from coming outside, and the other students wonder if they are taking an open ship to a city that is under attack. They are scared they will be killed, but Naito informs them that they aren't fighting and they are only giving support. He explains that in every city, there is an only agency. The agency has two teams. The first team are the ones who fight the war, while the other team gives support. Considering the fact that Onus lose blood easily and they can't go to the hospital, the team that gives support helps take care of victims to ensure they are fine. Overall, each team is important to the success of the agency. Hearing that they are only there for support discourages Shiki. He considers what he will do if the Momotaro that killed his father is also there. Naito sees through his thoughts and informs him that the Momotaro he is looking for won't be there. This is because Momotaros also have agencies. They wonder which kind of Momotaro will be there, and Naito shockingly tells them it's a crazy one. Soon after, Naito brings his rookie students before a local restaurant in Kyoto, but it's actually just a front and, in reality, is one of the secret bases of the Oni agency. The old lady owner of the restaurant comes out, welcoming everyone to the place and then bringing them over to a room inside that leads to a secret stairway to an underground tunnel. Meanwhile, two executives of the Momotaro agency are somewhere else and reveal that they have already decapitated a group of Oni. One of the executives is Tsubakiri Momomiya, the captain of the Momotaro agency, and his associate is Yomogi Momokusa, the vice captain. Yomogi thinks that Tsubakiri went overboard like always and has made this entire area a total mess. Tsubakiri couldn't care less about cleanup duty. He wants to exterminate more pests and expresses his wish to encounter a female only for once so that he can use her for research purposes. Yomogi mentions how gross Tsubakiri's experiments can be and reveals one of Tsubakiri's abhorrent creations, a creature that is a blend of a dog, a monkey, and a bird. Tsubakiri calls Yomogi mean, stating that his creations, which he refers to as anti-Oni biological weapons, are great pets as they are loyal and only eat Oni. Yomogi continues to argue, telling Tsubakiri that he should put more effort into his jobs instead of focusing solely on experimenting on Oni. Tsubakiri states that the only reason he's been studying Oni blood is because he wants to control it, and his biggest goal is to find a way to turn the only healing ability into a drug. Yomogi still doesn't stop because she's a woman, and as they keep arguing, the camera pans slowly to the left, showing us viewers that there's a kid Oni hiding around the corner and scared out of his wits after hearing what Tsubakiri said. Unfortunately for him, both Tsubakiri and Yomogi are aware of him hiding there, and once they are done chattering, Yomogi beats him up, referring to the kid as it, which is super disrespectful. While Yomogi is hitting the poor child, a drop of blood splashes on Tsubakiri's coat, which makes him so mad that he decides to torture the kid himself. Using his Momotaro powers, Tsubakiri lifts all of the Oni corpses in the air and asks the kid to point to which severed limb belongs to his mommy and daddy. The kid is unable to speak and terrified of the monster in front of him, which is quite ironic because the kid is supposed to be the monster here. Because the kid is not answering, Tsubakiri piles up all of the corpses and squishes the kid inside the pile. An inhumane sight. Yomogi explains to us briefly about Tsubakiri's abilities. You see, Momotaro's abilities let them fight using the special black bacteria in their bodies, where some make weapons and others launch spores. But in Tsubakiri's case, he controls the movement of Oni corpses using the black bacteria, a technique that gives Yomogi chills. Anyway, with the job done, now it's time to clean this mess up, so Tsubakiri tells his pet, Ugly, to go ahead and eat the Oni dumpling. On the other side, Shiki and the other students, along with teacher Naito, are walking through the underground tunnel that leads them to the main base of the Oni agency in Kyoto. Upon entering, Shiki can't help but wonder how huge this underground base is. They hear a commotion in the room ahead, and from inside, a man named Kyoka comes out who seems to be buddies with Naito, although it looks kind of like a one-sided friendship. After greeting Naito, Kyoka notices that there is a hot female student who came along with Naito as well, so he starts fixing his hair before asking the girl for her contact information. This flirty guy is the commander of the Oni agency's Kyoto-based support unit, and he proudly introduces himself to Naito's students as Naito's old classmate. Naito doesn't want to waste any more of his precious time with this guy, so he decides to go to the front lines immediately. Shiki wants to go with him, but Naito leaves alone, giving Kyoka the responsibility to handle all of the students from Resetsu Academy. Kyoka brings them inside, and a nurse helps them change their clothes first. She then brings them over to the hall room, where many injured Oni have been receiving treatment from her and Kyoka, who is the main doctor. Shiki sees that one of the patients has suffered extensive damage with 3 limbs missing from his body, and the nurse states that if this patient were on the battlefield, he would be dead in less than 3 minutes. However, Kyoka is confident that he will be able to aid this patient and brings tons of Oni blood to begin operating on him. The Momotaro agency's captain and vice captain are still on an Oni hunt, and this time they are facing a gang of low-level Oni grunts, which disappoints Tsubakiri a little, as he was expecting something better. Fortunately for him, Naito arrives and doesn't bother engaging in any small talk. Going straight to the point, Naito activates his blood eclipse release, turning his blood into several flying archers that fire arrows at Tsubakiri. Tsubakiri, in response, uses Oni corpses to defend himself before revealing that he and Naito are old acquaintances. He, as twisted as ever, comments on how Oni corpses make great shields. He then asks Naito if he knows that there is a place where all Oni of Kyoto have been gathering recently. He plans to head to that place and wipe all of the Oni out, believing that this way the Oni problem in Kyoto will end completely. Naito claims to have no idea about such a place, but promises Tsubakiri that he will be sending him to a place where it's believed that Oni gather, and it's hell. Kyoka, on the other side, injects all of the blood bags into his arm, which confuses Shiki as he thought that those blood bags would be used to treat the patients. His impatience annoys the nurse, so she tells him to stay quiet for the rest of the session. Kyoka asks the suffering patient which limb he would like to regenerate, and the patient, struggling to move his mouth, still desperately tells him to fix his arm as he would like to hold his kids once again. Kyoka accordingly makes the patient drink his blood, which has the power to boost Oni healing by several times over. The process hurts like hell, so the students hold the patient down to stop him from moving. Shiki notices that all of the blood bags have been drained already, so the nurse asks the others to get some more blood. After a while, the cells of the patient's arm begin to regenerate, and it's truly a disgusting yet miraculous sight. With the arm back, the patient's wounded chest heals next, and Shiki is impressed. He excitedly asks Kyoka if the patient's legs will heal too, and Kyoka replies that they will, but they have to take it slow. Otherwise, the patient's body will develop antibodies to destroy Kyoka's blood. In any case, Kyoka gives the patient the bad news that he can no longer be in the combat unit, so he will have to serve in the support unit from now on. Kyoka jokes that he will give the patient a pair of prosthetic legs so he can walk and perhaps run around with his kids again until his legs heal up. And the patient, knowing that Kyoka is saying all of this to cheer him up, cries, thanking the doctor for saving his life. Kyoka gets up and turns to the students, telling them to face reality. Situations like this happen every time there's a war, and there will come times when one of them might have to become a patient as well. Kyoka understands why people want to fight on the front lines. He wants to do it too, but because his only blood is only good at healing, he must utilize his powers by being in the support unit. Anyway, Kyoka tells the students to always remember that the Oni can only fight fearlessly in the front lines because they have the support unit backing them up. All of the students become motivated to do their best, and Shiki specifically gets all emotional, promising to never let Kyoka down. Speaking of which, Kyoka wants Shiki to deal with something and gives him the task of looking after an only girl called Mei, who's sitting alone in the garden room of this base. Kyoka explains that Mei was attacked by the Momotaro the previous day and was brought here for treatment. Since it's possible that Mei's parents aren't alive, Kyoka wants Shiki to give the poor girl some emotional support, as he knows that Shiki is one of the few kind ones among the students. Shiki understands and approaches the girl, asking her if she finds it amazing that there's a pond in the middle of this underground base. The girl doesn't respond, but Shiki continues, asking if Mei's parents are Ghibli fans since they named her after a famous Ghibli character. Mei still doesn't respond, so Shiki asks her if she would like to go to Iryudadera with him. This time she talks, asking Shiki what Iryudadera is, explaining that she doesn't have a lot of basic knowledge as she didn't go to school. Shiki wonders why, but before he can continue talking to her, he hears a commotion and finds out that the support unit has found many Oni corpses lying around in Kyoto and has brought them here. When Mei comes there, she is mortified upon discovering that both her parents are dead and that their corpses have been brought here as well. Meanwhile, Tsubakiri mentions to Naito that he's left a gift for the Oni at his previous fight scene, revealing that he deliberately left some Oni corpses there instead of feeding them to his pet and has laced them with his black bacteria. Suspecting that the Oni agency's support unit would bring the corpses to their base unsuspectingly, Tsubakiri can't hold back his excitement anymore as he cannot wait to control those corpses from here and create a ruckus at the Oni base just to check if the corpses have reached the base. He controls one of them, and it's Mei's dad. She becomes overwhelmed with joy, thinking her dad has come back alive, only to be horrified when he starts choking the life out of her. Kyoka, realizing that Tsubakiri is behind this, tells Shiki to quickly close Mei's eyes and then stabs the possessed corpse in the brain to deactivate Tsubakiri's ability. Shiki doesn't know who Tsubakiri is, but he vows to make him pay for traumatizing this innocent girl. Under Tsubakiri's influence, the Oni corpses begin attacking the workers of the support unit, and don't even spare the already wounded Oni who escaped from battle. Kyoka struggles to take the lead in this chaos, as he himself is attacked by a dozen Oni corpses. Shiki, on the other hand, is getting choked by poor Mei's mom, and Mei can't do anything except beg with teary eyes, telling her mom to stop. The poor girl already saw her dad die seconds ago, so Shiki clearly can't just go ahead and stab her mom next right in front of her eyes again, since Shiki still doesn't have a clear grasp of his Oni abilities. Naito had given him a handgun back when they were on the ship on their way to this city. The gun's bullets have Shiki's blood infused in them, making them more dangerous than regular bullets, and Shiki wonders if he should use the gun to free himself from Mei's mom's hold. With his own life on the line, he chooses the difficult option, grabs Mei close to him to prevent her from seeing what's about to happen, and then shoots her zombie mom in the head. Shiki then shoots the Oni that surrounded Kyoka and frees him from their hold. As Kyoka isn't fit for combat, he puts Shiki in charge of handling this mess while he himself rushes away to bring the patients to safety. Meanwhile, the other students are also fighting the zombie Oni, but since they themselves aren't that great at controlling their blood, they have no other option but to use their regular human fists. After a few minutes of fighting, they manage to knock down several zombie Oni, but they just keep getting back up. Shiki comes there and informs everyone that these Oni corpses are under Amamataro's control and can only be freed if their brains are destroyed. Jin steps up, using his blood eclipse technique to cut down the Oni approaching him. Shiki, on the other hand, is playing Call of Duty. It pains him to do this, as he knows that these people have friends and families that care for them, but still, for the greater good, he continues shooting them. Meanwhile, Kyoka is busy bringing everything in order, and he commands all of his subordinates to get the patients somewhere safe. Shiki's almost about to cry. His enemy is the Momotaro. So why is it that he has to kill his own kind against his own will? This question screws with his mind, and Tsubakiri, who's on the other side imagining the exact thing happening at the Oni agency's base, can't help but laugh at the spectacle. Naito knows that he must do something quickly before the situation escalates further, so he draws his weapon, the umbrella sword. But as he charges at Tsubakiri, the arrogant guy doesn't even move and just uses the Oni corpses as body shields, making a twisted comment that Naito has just made an Oni shish kebab. Naito doesn't even realize that Tsubakiri's monster pet Ugly has sneaked up on him, but just as the beast is about to punch him, he dodges and the Oni shish kebab takes the hit. Naito is visibly saddened seeing his comrades being toyed with and disrespected like this even after death. And Tsubakiri, noticing that, tells Naito mockingly that he should be happy these maggots are getting exterminated. Naito's patience has run out, so he decides to go all out, telling the rest of the Oni behind him to escape as they will just get in his way. However, Tsubakiri isn't going to allow any of them to leave, so he makes Yumogi use her abilities involving her melons, them, to create a barrier around Naito and the other Oni. Naito demands an explanation as to what this black sphere is that has contained them, and Tsubakiri, confident that Naito won't be able to escape, explains that this is Yomogi's special ability, and unless she says so, they won't be able to leave. And that means Tsubakiri can just freely head to the Oni agency's hideout and kill the rest of them there before dealing with Naito here. That is, if he remains alive. Naito remains silent, hoping Tsubakiri doesn't know the location of the hideout, but Tsubakiri reveals that he had planted transmitters on every corpse he left behind, and all of those transmitters are now pointing to one location, right under the Iriuda-dera building in Kyoto. Tsubakiri has nothing more to do here, so he walks away while laughing maniacally, leaving his pet Ugly behind to deal with Naito. Yumogi grants Ugly permission to enter the black sphere, and it gladly goes inside to grab its lunch. She then tags along with Tsubakiri, and he, like always, elaborates on what he is about to do now. According to him, that ugly pet is a mass-produced type beast, meaning there are many more like him at his disposal, so he can get rid of it anytime he likes. He decides to use it as a bomb to kill all of the Oni inside along with it. With just a snap of his fingers, the beast's belly begins to blow up, and before Naito can even figure out what he should do, the beast explodes, destroying everyone in the sphere. Tsubakiri looks back and becomes a little disappointed, as he had hoped the explosion would look more interesting. Regardless, he walks away confident that the explosion has gotten rid of all of the maggots, including the maggots' leader, Naito. On the other hand, Shiki and his teammates try their best to kill all the regenerating Onis. By the time they shoot the last one, they are all exhausted from the energy it has taken from them. They look at themselves and sigh in relief that it is all over. Kyoka informs them that he has taken all the injured Oni to safety and appreciates them for all they have done, admitting that if they weren't there, things would have gotten worse. They look at Mei, who is staring at her parents' corpses, feeling pity for the young girl. They all walk to meet her. Kyoka tries sympathizing with her, while Shiki feels worse because he was the one who shot her parents. He apologizes to her for making her witness such a miserable scene as he recalls how it felt when he shot them. She looks at them, reassured, and tells them they don't have to feel bad. She admits that all her life she had lived in fear, hiding from place to place, and couldn't even attend school. She knew that day would come, but she just didn't know when, so they don't have to feel bad. She reassures them, claiming they shouldn't worry about her. Those words make Shiki more worried. This young girl had just lost her parents, and instead of being in tears, she is reassuring them. He realizes how much the world has become a den of terrorists. He can't imagine a girl being this mature at a young age. When he was her age, all he did was watch superheroes and dream of becoming one. He recalls how his father looked at him as a child and how he would demonstrate the superhero sign. He assumes Momotaro are meant to be superheroes who safeguard the world and give others a safe place to live, but he couldn't imagine they are actually the villains. If those meant to make the world better are the ones destroying it, then he will do them a favor by becoming a villain himself. He vows to Mei as he hugs her and tells her he would ensure he creates a world where she will be safe to smile again. Can he bring this vow into reality? He holds her to his chest while the other owners watch in sadness, thinking about their reality and how their lives are nothing but exploitation in the eyes of the Momotaro. After the sad period ends, they have no choice but to move on. Kyoto calls Jin and tells him they have to move the remains of their fallen friends and bury them properly. He offers to take Jin to the cremation ground and comments that the ground is on their way to the hideout, though he is sure they didn't notice when they were coming in. He jokingly adds that if not for what happened, he wouldn't have shown them the place. All he is saying falls on deaf ears for Jin, who is still deep in thought about what he just witnessed. Meanwhile, Shiki and the others try to carry the corpses, but they are too heavy for Shiki, and he notices that one of his colleagues is just standing without doing anything. He accuses the boy of being lazy, but the boy tells him he is deep in thought about something. He has to be the only logical one among them. He explains that the fact those corpses could turn on them and they were attacked means there is a probability that their hideout has been compromised and the Momotaro are nearby. Such a smart boy. He reveals his power is mainly for scouting and that he can use his blood to check for any risk around. He releases his blood eclipse and searches the area. He explains he can detect threats within 5 kilometers and even confirm whether they are Momotaro or Oni. What a great power. He uses it and suddenly spots Tsubakiri and Yumogi nearby. The scene shifts to the entrance of Mizumoto, the Onis hideout. Tsubakiri has found their hideout and killed the guard. He excitedly calls their agency headquarters, asking them to send the dogs he created through his experiments to that location. When they ask what he is doing, he jokingly says it is an Oni exploration and that to have a mass termination of Onis, he needs the dogs. He even requests a particular dog he has kept for a special occasion. Before ending the call, he recalls that during their last Momotaro meeting, there was a special Oni they discussed, so he asks for the file on that Oni too. Yumogi looks at the dark stairs leading to the hideout and assumes it must be deep with several Onis inside. She asks Tsubakiri if she should send poison down before they enter to kill some of them. While he likes the idea, he suddenly stops and gives a wicked laugh. He refuses her idea, saying he will enter the place himself, ask all the Onis for their names before killing them. When Yumogi asks why, he reveals he is looking for an Oni named Shiki, a special Oni he doesn't want to kill. Instead, he wants to take him alive and experiment on him to learn about his special power. He excitedly sets off down the stairs to explore. It is going to be a difficult situation for Shiki, especially because he hasn't yet mastered his powers. What does this mean for the poor boy?